Welcome to this week's edition of What the Football. Amy and Suzy with you as always. And Amy, I went really deep for this booking today. I really wanted to bring somebody exclusive into What the Football. I looked far and wide. I reached across international waters. And then when the alarm woke up, I looked at my husband and I said, Rich, can you come into the studio today? And he said, I'm there every day, Suzy. I do a show there 5 days a week called The Rich Eisen Show. So hi there, Rich.
What's up, ladies?
And it's also called The Rich Eisen Studio, so there's that.
Listen, I was available. I made my schedule free. Here I am.
I love when you're our guest.
I like it too.
I love when you're our guest.
Sometimes we have to make life easier for ourselves,
Yes.
and that rarely happens. And I thought to myself this morning, make
Nice.
your life easy.
And here I am.
Yeah, hi.
What's up? How are you? Plus, I had to be here today.
Right. So there was that too.
Well, no. I had to be here today because this episode of What the Football is going to give the people what they're asking for.
Yeah, we really are because, Rich, let me just tell you what we like to do on this show.
Yes.
Every so often.
By the way, I'm a consumer of What the Football.
I hope so.
Thanks. And if you are a consumer, wherever you are, please do tell your friends to download What the Football podcast. We have an Instagram handle too, people, that I really
Let me
check.
help you out on this. Let me help you
go
this
for it.
at WT Football on Instagram. How'd I do that?
Yeah, that's
Look at
good.
you.
That's cute.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
I know, and I'm sitting here between Rich and Suzy. I'm almost wondering if we're going to be. Oh wait, did I do that wrong?
It's WT Football Podcast.
Okay. So
It's okay. That's fine.
Amy Trask, take 2. Now you know what goes on at CBS.
Yeah.
Amy Trask, take 18.
Nice.
That would be WT Football Podcast on Instagram.
I follow it.
I hope so.
I do, but that's not what I mean by giving the people what they want.
You want to give the people what they want because it's a happy day in the Trask household. Because every day that Dennis Allen gets canned is a happy day.
No. In all sincerity, okay.
Boy, I was going to be a little bit more subtle and gentle getting to the subject matter.
But I love Amy Trask when she gets fired up. And
You're
this is
going to
a good day
get
for it.
fiery, Amy, but with a very sincere statement ahead of time. I don't ever cheer
Of course not.
when anyone is fired because people who are fired have children, they're in school, it's disruptive of their lives. So I don't cheer when anyone's fired. Now, that said, I believe it was the right decision by the Saints. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can not cheer when someone is fired, and I don't, but you can also think that in firing him, the organization made the right decision, and I do.
Well,
I will cheer when somebody gets fired, but that's a whole different
oh
conversation.
my God, you won't do that. Stop it. What are you talking about? Who's firing do you cheer? What are you talking about?
Do you guys,
You want to
excuse
go
me.
there?
Oh, you're talking about politics now.
Anyway, Amy,
Okay.
Wait.
Okay.
For those people who are listening to us on all the places where podcasts are, as opposed to watching us
On
on,
the
Rich Eisen Show YouTube channel,
Look at this.
I want you to know that
she's amazing.
I am sitting right between Suzy and Rich.
Yes.
And I think that this discussion may devolve to the point where maybe I'm moderating.
Not
it.
at all.
No.
Okay.
This is our podcast. We are interviewing.
Oh.
Yes, I'm just a guest.
All right, so Aim, let's get right to it. Okay. You can't start the season winning 2 and then lose 7 and expect to keep your job, correct?
I think that's a fair statement.
Okay.
Plus, on top of it,
Yeah, look, you guys know, and I've shared this on this podcast before, and I'll share it again until Suzy tells me, all right, Amy, you already said that. Don't share it again. But here I go.
it's what the people want, Amy.
Who are the people?
Everybody.
Okay. For those who don't know, I overlapped with Dennis for a year in Oakland. He was there. I was there. And so I had a firsthand opportunity to watch him lead the team. And I'm using the word lead in quotes because I don't believe he was a leader. Or stated differently, I think what leaders do is best position everybody to be their best. Leaders accept all blame. Leaders attribute to success to others. And Dennis did none of that.
Well, what example happened in Oakland where that gave you an idea where you might have counseled the Saints from saying, all right, we'll take the DC from Sean Payton and elevate him?
Well, and before I get to that,
Yes.
Remember the movie Sliding Doors, where the doors of the train slide shut?
Yeah, the Gwyneth Paltrow movie with the great haircut.
I didn't remember that part. And because the doors slide shut, someone doesn't make it on the train and lives change. Think about this if you're a Saints fan. The Saints had two people on staff at the same time, Dan Campbell, and Dennis Allen. Dan is now leading the Lions, and the Saints made Dennis the head coach. Think if that had been reversed. Think if there was a sliding doors moment there. You think Saint fans would be happier with Dan Campbell?
I'm telling you, Don Bowie, our producer, is in the back dying a slow death.
Do you think he's crying?
Right
do you think I made him cry?
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, I don't think you made him cry because I think he's cried all the tears that he has left. But what gave you the indication in Oakland? Like, what happened in Oakland where you're like, this guy is no leader? Well,
again, he accepted no responsibility for things that went wrong. He never attributed any things that went right to others. And he didn't, look, I think good leaders do all they can to bring out the best in those that they are trying to lead. And I'm referring now to what Dennis did, not only within the locker room, not only with the coaching staff, but the organization as a whole. He diminished people. He left people in tears. And look, let me make something very clear. People will push back at times and say, well, Aim, he was a strong leader. He was a demanding leader. Let me tell you something. I worked for Al Davis for almost 30 years. I know what it means to be a strong leader, to work for a strong leader, to work for a demanding leader. But I also know that Al did what the best do, which is he best positioned others to be their best and tried to bring out the best in others. And I never saw that from Dennis.
Well, I mean, let's just assume that he hadn't evolved, okay? Because obviously there was a lot of time between your tenure and what happened with the Saints. When you go 2-0, and I know Mickey Loomis, the general manager.
I like Mickey. I know Mickey.
I don't know if you saw his statement today.
I did.
But he basically, said there were injuries and it's not really all Dennis's fault, which is what maybe somebody who put the roster together would also say. Certainly if Gail Benson might be looking around thinking I'm not done with a house clean right now. But that when you start 2-0 and then lose 7 in a row, and one of the 7 is a home game in front of the whole country, and the guy who Dennis Allen is replacing is coming in with his new team, and they beat the absolute tar out of the Saints on Drew Brees night.
And did you hear
on Drew Brees
night?
Did
you hear what that visiting coach had to say after that game about the Saints? He didn't mince words. He said they're a bad team.
I think also when you lose to Carolina by a point, I think that's also when you're thinking to yourself, we're not a football team playing in unison. We're not playing well. A lot of the players also said that they felt that they were held up to different standards. In fact, I read an article from Nick Underhill of New Orleans Football, and he did a great article on everything that went wrong under Allen. And it sounds like a lot of players, I'm going to quote, they were tired of him saying play Saints football, as the fact that I don't think they knew what Saints football was. And here's a quote: behind the scenes, cracks started to show during that season. Players griped about a lack of accountability and felt that Carr was treated by a different set of standards than everyone else. He often told the players to keep chopping wood, and players started making fun of that phrase.
Oh, my word.
Well, and, Rich, you raised a really good point, which is it has been quite a period of time since I was with Dennis in Oakland. And I'm the first to say that people can grow up on the job. They can grow on the job. They can learn from their mistakes. Look, I grew up. I not only grew on the job, I grew up on the job, and I made a lot of mistakes. I like to think, however, that I learned from those mistakes. And what I saw of Dennis in New Orleans suggested to me that he did not learn from that which he did poorly in Oakland. There was a game earlier this season where, you could see the frustration of players, and it just suggested to me that he didn't learn and grow from the mistakes. Look, we all make mistakes, and you know what you do? You learn from them.
Well, again, no doubt, and everybody's making some excellent points here, but when
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
When you have a big night in the Superdome and everybody's fired up and Drew Brees comes back in with his family and you're going to fet him and you take, earlier in the day, you're having events. Sean Payton's there. Everybody's back again. And then Sean Payton's team, which doesn't look like a Super Bowl winner, but they're definitely improving. They're on the up and up with a rookie quarterback that's supposed to be the next Drew Brees in terms of being attached to Sean Payton's hip and going on a magic carpet ride together, if it all works out, comes in and beats the crap out of you in front of a nationally televised audience, that puts you on thinner ice. And then what you just said, Suze, the Carolina Panthers team they just lost to were the team they eviscerated in the opening day 47-10. They were 37 points better. Now, I understand there's a ton of injuries that have happened between that day and this one, but this is a team that the Saints immediately put on the brink. They wound up benching their quarterback a week later after Jim Harbaugh had his way with him. And then this kid now comes back and beats Derek Carr in his return and wins for the first time in a long time. It's one of those that has the own that right. That's where an owner gets really pissed and maybe hears from all their friends like, "What's up with your team?" And they're like, "We got to do something."
And particularly when they are home losses. And look, a loss is a loss is a loss is a loss. And I'm not suggesting it's any easier when you're on the road.
Right.
But for a team owner to be in the home stadium, hearing the anger and the frustration and the booing from the fans. Makes it harder.
Yeah, and this is the first time the Saints have lost 7 straight since '99. They fired Mike Ditka then and their general manager, and yet they keep the general manager now.
Well, I think, again, you know Loomis, right?
I do, and I like Mickey
Loomis.
But
he's also involved in more than just the Saints with this, correct?
So he's involved in some of their other holdings as well.
Right,
and I love
the Pelicans.
Swin. Yep, and I love that he hired Swin Cash for the Pelicans, and I like Mickey, and I don't know how this is going to unfold for him, but I certainly wish him the best.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
does everybody still understand that I'm sitting between the two of them, and I feel like I'm sort of like
it changes the subject matter, and I'm the guest, not the host of this show. So that's why I'm like, you go ahead if you were about to say something.
No, I was just adding the fact that they now go with Rizzi, and we'll see what happens as they build from there, but it seems like they have to have a cleaning of house with the relationship of the head coach and these players. You can't be too Butch Hobson about it. You know what I mean? Like
Look at you going like Butch Hobson, like the Red Sox you're talking about? Okay.
Oh, come on. She drops in Boston
No,
references.
I understand that, but that's like you can't just be, tight with the player. Listen, this season's lost. It's over. Okay. You can't say that. And it'll be interesting between, and this may get dated because the trade deadline is going to happen after we record this and maybe before people
Rich, what the football is never dated.
Understood.
It's just just the knowledge we drop here.
Okay, so dated might be the wrong word, but if I'm the Saints, I'm like, who wants who, and you've got to replenish with a new start, and then the question is whoever you're going to hire as the next person. That person usually likes to bring in their hand-picked general manager. And certainly if you want to go and get Bill Belichick to come to the Bayou, I don't know if that's what will happen, then clearly you're going to have to remake an organization in a way that nobody would for Bill coming off of last year's final year in New England. But with him having a remarkable run already as TV pundit right now, I think he's now resetting his market, and he will be able to come in and make any situation his own, with an owner basically saying the floor is yours. I don't know if New Orleans is that
you might
situation.
be too busy reeling in mermaids on the Nantucket Beach.
The other thing that'll be really interesting to see is how the team responds to the firing of Dennis. In other words, is this team now going to show us something we have not seen in the last umpteen games?
Interesting.
And and that's a big tell.
Because that can happen a lot. You're absolutely right, Amy, where the team responds quickly by winning, and the team that wasn't performing suddenly becomes a whole
big
new
tell.
team. Yeah,
it's a big tell.
Didn't happen with the Jets until this past week. They finally won one for their new interim head coach.
And I'm always fascinated by this. You were the Jets and you were the Patriots, and you know what, America and the world. This shows we really can get along with people with whom we disagree, because I would love to know what goes on in your home when those two teams play one another.
Nothing. You know why? Nothing goes on?
Because they both suck this year.
No, it's not just that. But honestly, when our children were born, our oldest is 16 years old.
How did that happen?
Isn't it amazing?
Because wasn't he just born like 3 years ago?
Science. I thought he was, how did it happen? Like that Suzy and I had children.
No, I mean, how did 16 years go so fast?
16 years, yes, it's gone by that fast. Yeah,
good
he liked
Lord.
it.
Like,
Jay Felly
what are
liked
you
it.
thinking?
It's a joke. My goodness gracious.
This is fun.
Yeah. So at any rate, that when our oldest was born and the Patriots were winning and the Jets were not, and Brady, the
Well, they're
Michigan
still
man,
not
was
winning,
the
Rich.
quarterback. I'm aware of that.
Okay, sorry.
The quarterback, Thomas Edward Brady,
heard
Michigan
him.
man extraordinaire, now minority partner of
Yeah.
Las Vegas Raiders. What am I going to say? No, you got to root for Ray Lucas. Is that what I'm doing? You know, the
But
grounded.
this just proves
Get
a
outta
point I
here.
like to
Come
make.
on.
People, we can disagree
That ain't happening.
agreeably.
Understood.
Is Tom Brady really in trouble for making a comment about the
Officiating?
officiating
he's
after
not.
signing his deal?
Apparently, they're not going
They
to do
shouldn't
anything.
do that. I mean, he's taking. And by the way, that was he was absolutely in the right to say what he was saying
He
at the
has
time.
to say that as an
That they should not have ejected Brian Branch
as
from
a
that football
broadcaster.
game.
That's his job. I don't understand how he could possibly.
Well,
be
he's
Because you're
gonna
not
have
allowed
to-
to disparage
And I
officiating
know, but
as
He's
a
going to have to
membership.
walk a very fine line. I had no issue with what he said,
At
and I
all.
don't think he should have been penalized. But he is going to have to walk a fine
He
line.
couldn't have. He could have been far more strident.
Correct.
And I think he was. I'm not saying he was pulling a punch. I was saying he was just not as strident as others might be. And I don't know if he's sitting up there thinking, if I say that the New York officials that decided to eject Brian Branch like he's playing for Alabama, like this was a targeting rule where you just take a look at what the helmet was doing and where it hit the player, and we're not taking intent into this situation. I don't think Brian Branch was intending to harm anybody. I was surprised he got ejected. That's a 15-yard penalty, yeah, but we're ejecting him from a game, from a game that the entire country is watching between the first place Lions and the second place Packers. You're going to eject the best defensive player for the Detroit Lions in the middle of the second quarter of this game. So Tom Brady, as the guy who is sitting there in front of millions of people who want to hear what Tom Brady has to say, I think he did the right thing, and I hope he is not going to be.
Apparently, they're not going to.
Good.
At least I read that. And you know,
What
look,
would they do anyway? How would you penalize?
you want to know about how you get fined and stuff?
As a minority owner of the National Football League, I absolutely want to know.
Okay, so we never had a minority owner fined during my years with the team, but we did get fines.
Wait a minute, Al Davis got fined?
Did you ever get fined personally? Was it? Oh, let's
You
go
did.
Aim. Let's
no,
go.
I never did. I got letters from the officiating department.
Oh,
and
with
letters
Pereira?
from. I got
Last
one
week's
from
guest?
Pereira. I know. I should have mentioned that. And I got ones from executives at the league. Amy, we are aware of your behavior in the press box.
What'd you do?
Last week's
What'd you do?
I simply voiced my opinion.
With an F-bomb?
strongly
With an F-bomb?
I don't know that there might have been, but look, the NFL sends to every game.
No,
an
we're not
observer.
done. We're not
That
done.
was cute.
I'm backing
Okay,
what she
okay.
does.
He
Explain.
dances around.
No, I'm not
Did you
da-
say an F-bomb?
No, wait a minute. Let me give the setup for people that aren't familiar with this in a game. The NFL sends to every game an observer of officials. And that observer of officials sits in the press box.
An observer of officials?
Yeah, it's an observer of
a
Trask.
triple O?
An observer of
O?
officials. So in our press box in Oakland, one week in particular, I remember I was so angry at that which was going on the field. And yes, as Pereira said last week, when I would see a call I didn't like, or if there was a call I thought should have been made that wasn't, they did a countdown in New York in the officiating control center, the countdown to how long it would be until I called Pereira. You know, sometimes it was 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sometimes it was 10 or 20 seconds. One time in particular, I was so angry.
You didn't even call New York.
I did.
You went
but
straight to
after
the
I
triple
called
O.
him, I went straight over to that observer officials. And Suze, I think there were F-bombs involved.
it.
And I just went off on him. I'm like, it was incomprehensible to me what the official on the field did. Well, apparently said observer of officials ratted me out. And I got the letter from the league office the next week saying that my behavior was inappropriate. And it was a warning letter.
Jeez. Did Al get a copy?
Was it-
Al
I
Davis
so
CC Al
proud of it.
Davis?
I was so proud of it. I
Was
walked
it the
into
tackle?
Al's office.
Did it have to do with Tom Brady? And
Oh,
Woodson?
no. It was, I don't even remember the game because I did this so often.
So Tom would get a letter, is what you're saying? Like somebody in the, like what the...
No, this is,
Would it be?
this is very different because...
What's the
and
entity that would send him a letter?
Well, that's the thing I'm about to say. It's a different situation with Tom because he's got fiduciary responsibilities to Fox. That's his employer.
Yes.
And he has fiduciary responsibilities to the Raiders because he's a limited partner.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit of an odd dance. Does the league send the letter to Fox, or does the league send the letter to the Raiders, or does the league not send a letter at all? And my guess is it's a third. In my case, the league always sent me the letter that I was behaving poorly.
Right.
And it reminded me of growing up when my mom and dad would always get the "she's a behavior problem" letter. And, we're going to put her in detention, and we're going to,
my
Can you
goodness.
imagine
We're going way back
little
now.
Amy?
Oh, yeah.
Now we're doing therapy here.
So
Can you imagine
I
little
was
Amy?
proud. I got the, we're going
being
to,
put in the corner.
We're going to suspend her. We're going to detain her. She's going to get demerits. Well, I got those letters from the league office that if I didn't start behaving differently with the observer of officials, they were going to fine me.
Wow.
And I showed it to my husband, and he's like, do what you want, but could you not get us fined?
Yeah.
Amy, I got called into ESPN one time for behavior
What
not
was your
befitting
behavior? What
an
was your
ESPN
behavior?
producer. It was my day off.
Was this what you were wearing?
Yeah.
It was your day
Her
off.
garb.
Go.
She got called
It
on the
was my
carpet.
day off. I
What were
went
you
to a
wearing?
Yankees game because I think it was Rob Butcher, I think was the Yankees
PR guy.
PR guy at the
He's the one
time.
who looked like Pete Rose, right?
Oh,
little
did
bit.
you wear like a shirt that said "F the Yankees"?
No, of course not.
She wouldn't do that.
I wore a shirt that might have been today considered maybe midriffy. And it wasn't even midriffy. Like it was just a slightly shorter shirt and like a pair of jeans. But back in the day when I worked at ESPN, it wasn't exactly kosher, if you know what I mean. It was like the Wild West, right? And so, do I just say it?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I was one of the only.
No, don't say that.
Look, here's what I'm going to say. I got called into the office saying that what I was wearing to Yankee Stadium was not appropriate for an ESPN employee.
Okay, you know what's so amazing about that? Do you see what people wear on
No.
TV
Oh my
God.
nowadays?
I know.
I mean, are you kidding me? Like me, and you know how I dress. I wore suits to cover NBA games. I wore suits to cover like college football. I'd be freezing, but I wore something appropriate because I don't like looking like I'm going to a cocktail party
Yes.
covering a game. So I got called in, and Jim Cohen was in there.
Oh God. Oh God.
It was
God.
it was edgy.
Oh God.
So the
We're
woman
up.
says to me that what you wore to Yankee Stadium was inappropriate, and I look at her, I'm like, what? Like I'm from Boston, for Christ's sakes. I don't dress inappropriately ever, ever. So she leaves, and I look at Jimbo. I'm like, well, maybe she's jealous because she can't wear what I wore. That wasn't very nice.
It's not nice. It's
It
not
wasn't nice, but I said,
How
this
do we
is
get on this
absolute
subject matter?
I don't know.
because I got called
we get-
in.
how did we
Because
get
that was
on
the only time I've
Because
ever
you
gotten in
got called
trouble in
into
my
carpet.
life.
Because I got called
That's
in.
the only because you
I've
got
never
called
gotten-
in.
I've never gotten in
and that
trouble.
was my only demerit. Like
I
the only
got
time I
sus-
got sent to the principal's office,
I've
and I
never-
may have made a snide comment, but whatever.
I've never had.
I
that
found
problem.
up at my parents' house when I was going through something that they saved every single report card on which it was written.
My mother had.
Have
Behavior
you met his
problem,
mother?
behavior problem, behavior problem, behavior
that.
problem.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Richard
that's why
never had
Al
a
and I got
behavior
along so
problem.
well.
I never did. I never.
Richard never had a behavior problem.
Can we not?
I can't do the
I don't know
accent.
what we're talking
Damn it.
about.
Okay,
now.
you want
We're
to talk about?
talking
No.
about what? Let's talk about your game in Munich.
No, hold on.
So I want to tell you something
right.
really happy. We're going to turn this to something very happy.
Okay.
It made me so happy yesterday to see what Bill's Mafia did at the end of the Bills game. Tyler Bass kicked a 61-yard game-winning field goal with 5 seconds left.
Right.
And he is a very, very ardent supporter of a animal rescue organization
I didn't know that.
focused on cats. I believe it's called 10 Lives Saved. And Bill's Mafia did what Bill's Mafia does.
They swamped it?
immediately started swamping it
nice.
with donations, many of them $61 each because they were
Classy. So
61-yard
great.
field goal. And let me tell you something. And this is coming from a girl who sat there in Buffalo the day that they beat us 51-3. 51-3. I love you, Bill's Mafia, for what you do. You support the charities that are important to your players and
Yeah,
to
they
players
do.
around the league. When there's a player around the league that you want to support, you flood that player's charity with contributions. And by the way, Haley Bean and Brandon Bean of the Bills, very, very, very big animal rescue advocates.
Nice.
And they created something called Bill's Mafia.
Oh.
And for
cute.
every touchdown scored
Look at that.
by the Bills
Yes.
in Buffalo, it has to be a home game, They pay for the adoption fee for an animal. Dogs, cats, but sometimes other people, they want to adopt a turtle. They'll say, okay, we'll pay for the turtle. Or, maybe a squirrel. They support animal rescue. Bill's Mafia, Bill's Mafia. I love you.
Nicely done. Very well said, and very well. I didn't know about that. That warms the heart. Now let's talk Cowboys. Because I'm interested in your guys' opinion about this. Because, we've been talking about, and it kind of brings full circle everything we're talking about with Dennis Allen, and clearly what you were talking before, lack of respect for the coach, where he either didn't earn it, he wasn't receiving it, however you want to put it, it wasn't working. And I love Mike McCarthy. I think he's great. I've enjoyed meeting him, but we've been wondering for months how the Jerry Jones all-in philosophy was going to manifest itself once games were played. And how a team where the two guys on the screen on our YouTube channel feed, it's Dak and CeeDee Lamb, $96 million a year of quarterback to wide receiver combination once the contracts begin to kick in. How this team would respond to a lack of supplementing to its roster during the free agency period.
AKA Derrick Henry.
That's the way I always go with it. TJ, on the flagship show, on the main show around here, was saying the offensive line, it wouldn't have looked the same way as it looks in Baltimore. Fine, be that as it may. I would push back on that, but he's the Cowboy expert around here. But the reason why I'm bringing this all up is part of the all-in strategy was not extending Mike McCarthy. And sure enough, prior to this Atlanta Falcons trip to Atlanta, where they lost, and now they are going to lose Dak for a couple games at least, it seems, with a hamstring injury that came out prior to this taping that is more serious than believed at first. Zeke Elliott isn't on the plane because it's a disciplinary reason, and it's all been also reported out that it's a mutual decision to not come on the plane, whatever that means, because he's missed meetings. And I'm wondering that are we seeing a team that is not responding to this all-in strategy well at all, and that now that they're losing, and now that they're now 3-5, and the guy that they, instead of Derrick Henry, brought in from the old Dallas ways to try and, I guess, maybe set an example to teach the way things work. He's the one who's missing meetings and is now being disciplined by being sat at home. Isn't that a sign of disrespect towards the coach?
And of a team that's given up.
Well, and before we get into the issue you're raising as a whole, I will just tell you, I take big issue with teams that sit players for disciplinary reasons. I understand the importance of disciplinary action in some circumstances, but I don't agree with sitting a player, because then you're not simply punishing that player, you're punishing the entire team. And I've made that point in the past when we discussed our Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay. I won't go into it now, but the man could have played. The head coach and Bruce made the decision.
Robbins, you're talking about?
Yeah, Barrett Robbins.
He came back in time to play that game?
I saw him that morning in the lobby of the hotel. I had a conversation with Barrett the morning of the Super Bowl. He was absolutely able to play. And I know there's some people who think he shouldn't have played because of the emotional distress he was under. That's not a point I'm talking about right now. Al Davis gave the decision to Bruce Allen and Bill Callahan as to whether to play Barrett or not. They decided not to. And my point is, that didn't just punish Barrett. That punished the entire team. That was the first game we played that season in which we did not have the same 5 starting offensive linemen. Barrett was the center. Barrett gave our quarterback confidence. My point is not to delve into that again, but to say that is a prime example. We're making a decision not to play someone for disciplinary reasons. And that's why they did it. There are people that say, well, Aim, he had, emotional distress issues. That's not why they sat him. They sat him to discipline him. And that's not fair to the rest of the team.
Agreed, 100%.
So if
it's a
they
team
sat,
game.
that's right. And if you are sitting, and look, people can disagree as to whether Zeke would have helped them yesterday or not. But if you assume for the moment that he would, then by disciplining him, you're harming your entire team. And I don't think that's right.
But in the case of what you're saying, there was one game left to the season.
Right.
And it's the biggest game of everybody's life.
Right.
So if you make the exception of, you went off to Mexico the night before you broke curfew, and it's a bad breach of protocol and team rules. But if you want to overlook it because it's the Super Bowl, then you can say to everybody, hey, next time we go to the Super Bowl, you take off for Mexico, we're not going to be as lenient. Like, you could do that. In this situation, though, Amy, like, what do you do? The guy's missing meetings, and you're going to say he missed one on Friday?
Why not just fine him a ton of money? Why not just make it fiscal?
And you've got to do that within the collectively bargained rule. I agree with you, Suzy, and there are some limitations on that, in accordance with collective bargaining rules. But I agree with you entirely. And my point, Rich, isn't that a player might not deserve discipline. It's that by sitting a player to discipline him, you're hurting the whole team. If you're the guy, Rich, let's say you're the tackle on that team, and you do every single thing right.
Yeah.
Why should you be penalized by sitting a player who could help you win?
Let me go a step further. Does this say to you guys that this head coach is no longer in control of this team?
Absolutely.
And why wouldn't they replace him now? If the Saints are replacing their head coach, why not just make the move now?
Because you're not saving your season by getting rid of Mike McCarthy.
But you're making a statement that you're not willing to give up.
He's also your play caller, though, too. He's calling the plays on offense. So you're now not just losing your head coach, you're losing your play caller on offense as well.
But what if you lose your players because you're not making a statement?
Then you should have signed him to a long-term deal. Then you should have extended him 1 year. And then instead of this all-in craziness, it's just absolutely beyond that you're going to. I don't know how many. Did the Raiders ever have a guy go into his walk year as a head coach? And
I kind of think the answer is probably yes, but I don't remember.
Okay.
But let me ask you a question, Rich.
You're asking for it.
Okay, but here's my question. So you have three choices if you're Jerry.
Yes.
Jerry, Stephen, Charlotte, Jerry Jr., the decision makers.
Yes.
One, you let him play in his final year with no extension.
Which is what they did.
Which people would call a lame duck year. Two, you give him an extension, but then you're thinking to yourself, if I extend him for 1 year and I fire him after this year, am I willing to eat that salary? That's a question to consider.
You're making money hand over fist.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay, but that is a consideration some people would make.
Right.
Or three, do I sign him to a 2 year, but then I don't know that I necessarily want to eat that money, so I'm going to keep him for 2 years.
Or are you just sitting there waiting to see if maybe you bring Belichick in after all this other conversation? We talked about it with the Saints. Dallas has one more win than the Saints, so maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking, I'm going to clean house and bring in Bill, and Bill's going to crack skulls and get things together.
He had that option last January.
But it seems like Jerry's uncharacteristically waffled on a lot of big decisions.
No, I think what Jerry's done, and I have the temerity, since he's one of the 32 or 33, including the commissioner at whose service I'm working at his pleasure pretty much right now, that he could not handle, grasp, process getting smoked by Green Bay in last year's playoffs, and had 24 to 72 hours to figure out, do I want to make a change at the head coaching position? Decided not to do that, and then at some point said, I'm not paying these guys until they can actually win a playoff game.
Well, you made a point, Rich. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you made a point when I said you could sign him for another year, but then if you want to fire him, you're going to eat that salary. And
how much is that? $8 million? It's the cost of what Derrick Henry would have been.
Well, and you're absolutely right.
I don't know.
On a relative basis, you're absolutely right. But that's the point. Some team owners, and I don't know where Jerry stands on this, but there's a huge revenue gap between the highest revenue clubs and the lowest revenue clubs. It's a huge gap.
Well, he's at the top end of that, isn't he?
But some owners don't want to eat sunk costs as much. And I don't know where Jerry falls on that. But some owners are loath to eat sunk cost.
There's two different ways. Since we're talking sliding doors, I feel like this is the sliding doors episode of What the Football. There's two ways this could have gone. The way Jerry handled it, or after it was over, saying, if I'm staying with McCarthy, if I'm not going to go, I don't want to go into the coaching pool. I don't want to start dating new people. I don't want to do that because I was sitting in there. I was sure we were going to beat Green Bay. I kind of love this team and I love this coach. So the best way I'm going to go about this is I'm going to keep the coach. I'll extend him for a year because I cannot have him go into this season without the other year because there could be a problem. Hold on a second. And then the other aspect, what I would do is I know we needed the help in X, Y, and Z. I know we were losing to Green Bay for X, Y, and Z. I'm going to shore up X, Y, and Z in free agency. And in order to do that, I'm going to sign Dak and CD right now and make sure that I'm not going to have other people set the market. I know Tua's going to get a gig. I know Jordan Love's going to get a new contract, get a new contract. I know Trevor Lawrence is getting a new contract. I know Jared Goff is in line for a new contract. I am not going to let Shad Khan or Stephen Ross set the market for me with my guy. I'm going to sign him now. I'm going to make him more cap friendly for me now. And I'm going shopping in the free agent market to get one or two people because it's exactly what my quarterback needs, what my defense needs, what my offensive line needs. And I'm going to go into the draft and I'm going to go and hit that too. And then I'm going to hit the ground running and we're going to run it back. And that's my concept of all in. And the other way, it's just, there's no other way to put it. It's just
all
weird.
All in was getting Derrick Henry. Ask TJ.
That's what I would think. But again, they think it wouldn't have worked or what have you. To me, though, all in being a poker player, as you know, it's interesting that No Limit Hold'em is from Texas. So you'd think somebody from Texas would know an all-in strategy is to say, I've got everything here and I'm going all in, meaning I'm going to do every last thing possible to win this hand. Not saying I'm going to take all in, I'm going to shove all that I currently have right now and not 100% if I lose the hand, say it's everything I got.
All right, I'm going to take issue with one position.
Weird. Sure.
And it's not the all-in concept. First of all, I absolutely positively believe that Jerry wants to win, and I note that because some people think, does he really care about winning?
I heard that. I don't believe that either.
I do. He wants to win. I know that to be the case. Here's what I take issue with, and it's not just as to Mike McCarthy, it's as to any coach who goes into what is referred to as a lame duck year. I don't think that should be a factor. Let me tell you something. If someone says to you, this is the last year of your contract, I'm not going to renew you right now. People in football and in sports look at that as a negative. Oh, man.
I see
this
it as a
coach
challenge.
Yeah. If you're in your last year of a contract, isn't your response, I'm going to be so good this year that if I'm not renewed here, someone else is going to renew me. If someone says to me, this is your last chance to prove yourself, well, then I'm going to go prove myself. Why do people think it's a negative to go into the
Matthew
last
Stafford or Jared Goff?
I could not push back on that more.
Well, good. We're going to agree to disagree.
Because,
have at it.
Well, yes.
That's why it's called What the Football with Suzy and Amy.
Well,
You've got your own show.
I just thought, nice. You got Jay Felly with that one. I heard him laugh off camera
Thanks,
right there.
Felly.
No, because that's just not the way it works in the National Football League
irrespective
for
of whether
everybody,
it does.
and you know that.
Oh my God! Did you
that
just
way.
mansplain that to Amy Trask,
No, I said
former president of the
but here's the
Raiders?
thing.
No,
That's
and I
not how
said,
it
and she
works?
knows that.
But no, here's
and
the thing.
You know that not everybody is self-motivated when they
here's the
come to
thing.
work in the
They
National
should
Football
be.
League
Damn
locker
it,
room.
That's the point,
They
Suzy.
should be.
Irrespective of whether it works.
Out of here.
What?
That didn't mansplain a thing to you.
A little mansplaining.
Okay, here's the deal. Irrespective of whether it works, it should work that way.
But
If
that's not
someone
the-
I don't care, Rich. If someone says to you, you're in your last year of your contract, I haven't decided whether I'm going to renew you, well, then your reaction should be, oh, I'm going to damn well
That's
prove
right.
to you should renew me. And if you don't, then someone else will want me.
But invariably, there will be a player, not because he is unable to self-motivate or isn't viewing the world in the manner in which you're viewing it, the two of you properly viewing it. There is a view, if the head coach doesn't have more years left on the contract as you as a player do, you're sitting there saying, this guy doesn't know shit. He doesn't know his ass. Hold on a second.
Unless they like the coach enough that they want to play for him. So, which is what I'm saying, that maybe this is about the coach.
Or unless the coach is just very open and honest in the locker room and says, okay, you all know I'm in my last year. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to prove to this team or any other team how good I am. And the way I'm going to do that is by getting you to play your best.
Unless they don't have the right personnel.
Or the player says, I know I've been a veteran in this league. I know how to win here. Literally, if this is the case of what Zeke Elliott is doing right now, and I don't know, so I'm treading on thin ice, out on a very thin limb here, because I don't know. I'm ascribing what I believe might be happening. Is what I'm saying is that he might be sitting there saying, I know what works. I know how I can be in this position. I know I could get the ball more. I know how this offense and the route concepts are not being schemed properly. I know better than this guy. And my last year here is going to be judged based on what this guy is doing. He doesn't have any more years left on more time left on his contract than I do. So I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say something. I know exactly what should be done around here, not this guy, which is what happens when you don't extend your coach. These things can happen.
And then he should have dumped him last year and moved on with a new coach, and they should have regrouped with a new sense of leadership a new sense of purpose, and maybe brought in Derrick Henry.
And all I'm saying is, irrespective of whether he should or shouldn't have renewed him, if I am in the position of being in the last year of a contract, then I'm going to do every single thing I can to prove that you should extend me. And if you don't, that someone else should hire me. I think that's what competitors do. I think that's what people who want to be the best do.
I think I just got that Amy-splained to me.
Yeah,
that's the way I'm feeling right now. Trask-splained. You should have a new segment here.
I like that idea.
I do want to say that
it's got to be sponsored to have.
Listen, I hate to say it, but I enjoy a sponsorship.
And I do too. You know, I will never mention a
she
product
will never
on this
say
show.
A thing.
We could be eating candy on this show. I take the wrapper off because unless that candy company is sponsoring us,
I'm just fishing for sponsors.
I am not showing.
I'll basically say anything.
I'm not giving anyone free advertising. Rich, I like when you explain things to me because I like when I explain things to you because that's what good people do.
I love it when he explains things to me.
Oh my God,
it's great.
We explain things to one another. We're just sharing thoughts. We're not splaining. We're sharing thoughts.
By the way, the fact, just as a perfect example, just to bring this up here on this pod.
Well,
I mean, the other day, Suzy is a coach of a team that our daughter.
This was so.
No, I came up to her after the game. I'm like, I have some thoughts. I'm in the stands.
Oh no,
I have the ear. I had the ear of the coach. But I have some thoughts about what should be done in practice.
Did you make notes during the game?
I did not. Mentally, I made notes. So I walked up to her. But this is after a win, by the way. After a win. Oh God, she just didn't. She didn't want to hear it. She thought.
Well, maybe you could have given it an hour or so just to let it percolate.
Let me ask you a question, guys out there listening.
Oh my God.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh my God.
WT Football Podcast. Let us know if
is that really the proper
WT Football Podcast
let me know
at Instagram.
If you're picking up what I'm putting down. Is that the right way to say it?
I did the app thing. Wait a minute. It's okay. At WT Football Podcast.
Yes.
Leave us a little.
Oh God.
Leave us a little note. Do you think that I knew what he was going to say about the one kid who possibly doesn't see the court?
No, you don't have to call the girl out on the pod right now.
I'm not calling the girl out. There's 7 girls that played. We had a very limited amount of players.
Yeah, by the way, a great tightening of the rotation. You did a great job. I thought you and Goldie crushed it.
Thank you.
I had a couple of suggestions. I suggested one thing. Apparently, she's already addressed this before, which I didn't know.
Many times.
Which I didn't know. And it's not like when I bring it up, I'm assuming you're not noticing in the point, like I was trying to be helpful.
Rich, the final buzzer hadn't finished sounding.
Bullshit.
Before you said to me,
by the way,
I have some notes. I'm like, you
everybody
do?
in America, I want you to know I'm sitting between them right now.
The final buzzer was still sounding.
Fake
and
news.
Rich said, I have a couple notes.
Let me answer this. First of all,
the girls had not handed out their mini oranges yet.
Now, that's true.
Excuse me. First of all, I did it wrong.
It's off a win. Yes, Tom.
At what Okay, I did it wrong again.
It's
Here it is.
WT Football Podcast.
At WT Football Podcast.
Yes.
That's on Instagram.
Yes.
Number 2, Rich.
Yes, Amy.
I would just have maybe waited till you were home having a glass of wine.
Because no, at that point in time, there's so many other things. Like now we're off to 5 other things because we have 2 other narcissists at home.
But maybe just striding over to her on the court maybe just the timing wasn't great. I'm just saying.
It wasn't. It
Amy,
was
I hadn't
outdoors.
even finished going through the high five line. Good
No,
game, good game, good game, good
that
game,
is
good
not-
game, good game, good game.
That is false.
America, I
That's
am sitting
false.
between the 2
Nice.
of them right now.
Okay. Are we,
And I love them both. And nobody's
Love you too,
splaining
Amy.
anything to anybody. We're just sharing thoughts.
I was going to add something, but I forgot what it was.
And
What
when we
was it?
disagree, we do so.
I'm not
agreeably.
suggesting. I'm not suggesting. I'm not
Oftentimes
suggesting.
You know what?
anything.
I think my husband's in the green room.
Also,
Is he really?
hey
I
Rob.
think so.
Hey Rob. Also,
Rob.
if you want to tweet at us, I don't even know how you do
Oh,
it, but
my
do it
God.
at Rich because I looky Lou on his Twitch and his
Hello,
Twitter.
am I not a person?
At Amy Trask.
At Amy Trask.
She's
Thank
as,
you.
she's as active on Twitter as anybody else or X
true.
or whatever. All right,
So you're going to Germany.
I am. That's
Okay.
enough.
Okay, just so you know.
Okay. There's my wait.
Let
All
me,
right.
let me help you out a minute. When
Yeah.
you're in Germany, if you
Yeah.
want to order a beer, it's
Yeah.
ein Bier. No, ein Bier. I just did
Oh my God,
Japanese.
you've practiced
It's
this. You
ein
gotta get
Bier
this.
Bitter.
Bitter.
Ein Bier bitter.
Yes, indeed.
Have fun. Bring us some pretzel brat back.
I will do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip.
Giants and Panthers, please watch.
Isn't it violative of international law that we're sending them Giants and Panthers?
I don't know. You've been in membership. How does that get decided? Do we know?
Some teams lobby for the option to go overseas.
Right.
Some teams, and I worked for one, affirmatively lobby against it. And it wasn't my decision. Al didn't want to go on the overseas trips, not because he didn't like them, but, the travel. So some teams don't want to go overseas.
Because the
And by the way, when
tracksuits
I
were
was
not
in the
weather
league-
appropriate? Is that what you're
Oh,
saying?
Rich, don't be mean.
I'm not being mean.
And by the way, when my
Rich.
years in the league, it was preseason
Get her,
games.
baby.
We
Get her,
played
baby.
preseason games. They're not regular season.
I'm not being mean.
Amy, he loves a tracksuit.
Get him
Nothing.
one.
No, he
Get him
has.
one.
He has several. Nothing Rich loves more than a matchy smatchy tracksuit.
A matchy smatchy.
Yeah, the hoodie's going to match the bottom.
You make it sound like it's a garanimal.
That also sounds a
remember
little
those
bit
back when I was a
inappropriate.
kid.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for taking in
That's
this edition of What the Football. I'm going to leave it on the fact that I may have said something that sounded a little bit racy.
Very nice.
So let me leave that to your imagination. This has been fun.
This has been so much fun.
Yeah,
I'm
anytime.
just gonna.
So fun.
I'm just going to hold down the fort here
Please do
in the U.S. But
Please do it. We'll be back next
hey,
week.
Rich, hope you come back on What the Football sometime soon.
Anytime. I'm around.
Ein Bier, bitte.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking in this edition of What the Football. We will talk to you next week.